Off my vices, the nicest. Off this wicked, get lifted. He asked me why I'm never sober. Catch me constantly sipping. Cause I've been dealing with some demons you won't understand. The way my mind processes thoughts, it's like it never ends. And I've been feeling like...
Hey everyone. So my name is Jarnae, but I do go by Hippie. This is going to be an introduction into my podcast to let you guys know a little bit more about what my podcast is going to be about, and also just to cue you guys in on why I started the podcast in the first place, and just also just why I started the podcast in the first place. I will start by saying that I have a lot of personality, but a lot of people who don't know me personally don't know that I have a lot of personality because I'm really quiet. So a lot of these things are not going to be out of the norm for me. But essentially, I'm trying to put a voice to my trauma, I guess, and so we'll get into that in a bit. Again, my name is Jarnae. I do go by Hippie. Some people know me as Ming, some people know me as Gigi. It just depends on what era you were introduced to me as, or what era you started following me in. Currently, I'm in my hippie era. But yeah, so I'm 25. I do live in Phoenix. I am Phoenix born and raised. I have traveled and lived throughout the South, and if you know me, I'm really big on my adventures that I had living and breathing in the South. So the reason I started this podcast, I spent a lot of my younger 20s. I am 25 now. I spent a lot of my younger 20s, so about 21 to 23-ish, being in a extremely toxic relationship that I refused to believe was toxic. Now, the reason I refused to believe that the relationship was toxic was because he was doing a lot for the household. And I guess it's not even necessary that I refuse to believe that the relationship was toxic. I just accepted the relationship for what it is because I felt like he was doing so much for me. And as a woman, as a Black woman, it is really hard to let go of situations, especially when you're used to doing everything by yourself, and you do now have a partner who's here, and he's helping, and even if you have to deal with some BS in between, one or two, and that's kind of what we were raised believing, or what we're accustomed to when it comes down to our grandparents, our great grandparents and stuff. You see, they've been married X amount of years, and it's absolutely amazing, and I love that for them, and I hope to achieve that one day. However, when you sit back and wonder how many of them were actually dealing with absolute bullshit. Like, let's just keep it a buck. You sit back and wonder how many of them are dealing with absolute bullshit. So, so I was in a relationship, and I was in that relationship for a very long time. After leaving said relationship, I jumped up and moved all the way across the country. I moved all the way to Alabama. I packed up my kids and we kind of just moved all the way to Alabama. I had no reason to move to Alabama except for that I have a cousin that lived in Alabama at the time, and she's my first cousin. So it's legit. It was a valid reason. Like, that's my closest cousin. True definition of sandbox. So so I moved all the way out to Alabama, trying to get a break from the city life, quote unquote city life, and give myself, some breathing room, some fresh trees, some air, some rain. I love rain. And after doing such, after moving to Alabama, I kind of fell into a very deep depression. I went through a period in time where, I was celibate, so there were no outside entities impacting me specifically. Let's just say that specifically in that area. There was nothing really clouding my judgment. There was nothing really clouding my spirit, and I fell into a deep depression, and a lot of it was really just surrounding a lot of my relationships with men and trauma, and they just essentially had to be addressed, and we just had to take it there. I spent a lot of days in the dark with myself and just figure out, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And I also had to sit back and take a lot of accountability for my space and my involvement in these conflicts and these situations with these men. So while in Alabama, I started writing a book. A lot of you guys may be familiar with the book. The book is called The Reason I Hate Men. And I started writing this book, and the book essentially was about men, my experiences with different types of men, the different men I've dated, my experience with them. And at the time, the book was my heart. Like, the book was everything I needed it to be. It was doing everything I needed it to do for me. At the beginning of each chapter, there were short descriptions of these men. There were short descriptions of these men and characteristics. I also included zodiac signs, because if you don't know, I'm spiritual, so I'm kind of big on certain things. But we all know sun signs are not the only thing that depict a person's behavior. But I thought it was kind of fun to just throw in their sign, their height, brief descriptions of them, and I go on to tell my stories and what happened between me and these men. And I want to start, but I do want to throw in that a lot of times you'll hear me refer to my exes as experience, because they're all experience. They're not exes. They are experiences. As humans, we tend to have control issues. We have a lot of validation issues. And we have to understand that we do not control a certain person. So if you put a title like an ex onto somebody, you're projecting that onto them, like, oh, you're my ex. No, you're not my ex. We just had an experience with one another, or we experienced each other. So I just want to throw that out there. I try to self-correct a lot, so you'll probably hear me do something like that throughout the duration of these different shows. But yeah, like I was saying, I became extremely caught up in writing the book, to the point to where it got extremely triggering. I got to one chapter in particular where I was 16 years old, and I was dating a 23 or 24-year-old man, and it started to get extremely triggering as an adult. Looking back, mind you, I'm only 23 at this time, so now I have 2 extra years of wisdom on me. But it became extremely triggering to sit and recall such a story of me being 16 and allowed to date this grown man, because it was not a secret. Not everybody, but at the time I was just living with my mom, and that's a different story. That's a whole different story. By the time I was living with my mom, and if you know me or you know anything about my life, then you kind of know how that goes. But I was essentially allowed to date this grown man, and no fault to my mom at all, because she probably just thought she was doing, or complying with what would make me happy. But I should have been educated. I should have been schooled. Somebody should have sat me down and been like, you know what, this is wrong. Even though as adults, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, about a 7-year age difference is probably not seen as bad. However, we're talking about me being in high school and this being a grown man at least 4 or 5 years outside of high school at the time. I did stop writing the book at that chapter, and I still have not picked up the book, and I felt extremely bad, because my initial purpose in writing the book was to give women like myself who have been through some of the things that I have been through a voice. And so I developed the idea for this podcast about a year ago, and I did not end up doing it or launching it. For whatever reason, we're not going to get into any excuses or any details. But ultimately, my goal is to put a voice to the trauma, to put a voice to the pain, to give someone that's going through some of the things I went through another reason to live. I don't want to say live another day, but I guess to love another day, or to just feel like, in particular, like everything will be okay. Like, everything will be okay. Here I am now, 25. I'm on the outside of things now. And looking back on everything, I wouldn't necessarily say it was worth it. But I, had to account for or take authority over my involvement in these situations. and also sit back and analyze, what did I miss? What red flags were there that I decided to skip over? What things were said? Because men, I don't care who or what, will always tell on themselves first. You will always see some type of sign that you ignored, and you will not know that you ignored that sign until you're too deep off into it, and then you start recalling things and you're like, hold on, wait a minute. So what really triggered me to get to really put this podcast into motion was around August of last year, so 2023. I moved back to Arizona and got into a relationship. The relationship lasted all of 3 months because I was able to get in there, and I mean full-blown relationship. We lived together and everything. I was able to get in there, recognize so many signs that I maybe have ignored in the past because we had been dating for years prior. We just weren't monogamous. I was able to recognize them extremely vastly, and it unsettled me so badly. But I was able to recognize those signs, and I was able to get up and get out of there. And when I really sat down and thought about it, it was like, damn, like it used to take me 3-4 years to get in somewhere and kind of paint over like, oh, he's gonna get better, he's gonna get better. Oh, once this happened, he'll be better, And I was able to get in there and be like, oh no, like you're tripping, like this is not the party for me. And I think it came from, again, me sitting in solitude, me, that was my first relationship since 23. So I think my wisdom in that situation, my ability to maneuver in that situation came from me sitting back and having those talks with myself and educating myself and kind of, putting a stop to some things that were going on. One of the mechanisms that I used in this particular relationship was I made a list on my phone of every red flag, every time something happened that unsettled me, every single thing he said to me that just was like, why would you say that to somebody? Because at the end of the day, I don't operate like that. I don't say shit just because I'm angry. I'm never gonna tell you to go fucking die. Like it's just not me. So on the back end, I was able to get out of there pretty smoothly, and that really triggered me into like, okay, like you can do this, you have the wisdom, you have the resources, you have, you can really teach somebody something, or somebody can really learn from you just by hearing what you have to say. So yeah. So that's a little bit about why I'm starting this podcast. I hope y'all hanging in with me, and I'm so sorry if I'm getting derailed. So the title, let's talk about the title and where the title came from. It's no secret that I'm a Cancer, and I love being a Cancer. I'm a Cancer woman at that. Yeah. So with that being said, I spoke about it a little bit earlier. There are more placements than just your sun sign. Everybody has 3 placements, but you have more than 3. You have 3 major placements, which is your sun, your moon, your rising, right? All 3 of mine are in Cancer. So that's why I'm considering myself the ultimate lover girl, because, everybody has so much to say about Cancers and what we do and what we don't do and how we love and how we boo-hoo, cry babies, oh, suck it up, But it's like at the end of the day, when a Cancer starts cancering, baby, you're the one crying, not, baby, I'm cool. Because once I get to that point to where I'm having to do you how you did me, it's nothing, it's baby. Yeah, cry about that. So your sun sign, usually characteristics are very generic, masculine characteristics, right? Your moon are more in depth. They're tied to your emotions, so they're considered your feminine characteristics. and your rising are how people on the outside looking in usually view you and your behavior. View you and your behaviors. So, like I said, a lot of people have their own narratives about cancers and how we just all just such crybabies. I'm not a crybaby. I'm in tune with my emotions. I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for. I know where I'm going, and I know I'm not going to let you play with me in order to get me there. I know what I'm willing to stand for and what I'm willing to fall for. And I used to hate myself because of my emotions and how emotional I am, but I've come to love it. I've come to love myself, and I've come to love how emotional I am. I will never change that for anybody, because at the end of the day, I will give you the best loving, nurturing, anything ever of your life, as a friend, as a girlfriend, as whatever. I can definitely say I'm in tune with what the people around me need and how to provide it for them, and I'll never take that from myself. And yeah, guys, so that's pretty much it. That's gonna be my introduction. It's a long introduction, and I do apologize, but our very first episode is launching Monday, March 18th at 10 p.m. and we are launching across almost all platforms. I cannot think of each platform out the top of my head, but I'm gonna make sure you get there. We will also be launching on YouTube, so we will have the visual and the audio of the podcast. Yep. Go ahead and follow us on all social medias. Instagram at 3 times the cancerianbluez, Facebook canceriantalksbluez, and TikTok at 3 times the cancerianbluez. Bye, y'all.